Hello and welcome to another week of Sambo iRacing. As it's week 13 and there are no official races in the V, so there's no need for me to do a track guide, I have done what people have asked me to do, and I'm looking at trying to do a little race video on racecraft and how to overtake, how to defend, how to avoid hazards, and best sort of practice from that point of view. So I'm going to break this up into starts, overtaking, defending, avoiding hazards, and then showing you that even if you do the best of those, sometimes you die. So hopefully you'll find this entertaining. Hopefully you always find them entertaining, but hopefully this will be informative and show you that as well as just doing sort of fast laps and stuff like that, this is how to actually move up through the pack, how to get your iRating up, and how you can sort of hit the 5Ks, because a year ago I was 1,250, now I'm at 5.2. Okay, let's go, and I'll see you in the cockpit, and we shall go through starts. Okay, so this section is going to be relatively brief because 3 months ago I did a full video, you'll see at the top right of your screen now, on the starting procedure in the V, and I tested various different ways to get away without using dual clutches or anything like that, or bite points that are already input. So I do the same thing every time. I find a rev point between 4.5 and 5,000 revs, and then I slowly, although relatively fast, but I gradually release the throttle, as you'll see from the input telemetry here. So I've got it set on 4,800 revs. I wait until the green light, holding it absolutely steady, and as you can see by the input telemetry, bottom left there, I then pace it up, I never drop back down, but I don't release it fully. And that will always get me, if I'm starting from the back, a couple of positions here. I'll show you on two other starts, two different ones. They're both at Lime Rock as well. However, you'll see that I'm doing the same thing time and time again. See you in a second. Okay, so here we have the same thing again. Light's about to go green. I'm sat on 4,765 revs, so about 4,800 once again. I'm waiting for the lights to go green. This is a different one, I promise. As you can see, slowly get up to full throttle, get myself 2 places right at the very start, and I'm immediately on the attack, on the outside, to go around the outside of T1 and see if I can pick up any more places. Always giving them plenty of room, because you never trust anybody. And then I'm back on the inside for T3, because Big Bend is turns 1 and 2. And as you can see, so from the start, I've picked up 3 places, and I've done nothing that anyone can't do. So very, very straightforward. I'll show you a third time, but it's what I do if ever I've had a bad qualifying, or like here, I'm running from the back so that I can get a bit of content. It's always the same start procedure that I do. So exactly the same here. As I say, I'm not using dual clutch or anything like that. I'm just using a single clutch. I'm sat at 4,700 revs, there or thereabouts. Again, I ease up to full throttle. I make one pass immediately. Make the second one with relative ease, and the third. I go round the outside of T1 here, always the way at Lime Rock. I always give plenty of room on the inside. But then by going around the outside of 1 and 2, gives you the inside for turn 3, because you're on the throttle a lot earlier than the guy that was on the inside. And there you go. So by the time we get to turn 3, 4, I've moved up 4 places. And this is something absolutely everybody can do. Now we're going to go on to overtaking, and the easiest way to do that in the V, and where you should do it and where you shouldn't do it. Right, so we're going to go through some examples of overtakes that I've made during the last season, and it's just to show the thinking behind them, and where I do it tends to be in the safer places. So I could definitely dive bomb and make passes in all sorts of tricky corners mid-race and mid-track. I tend not to do that, because I always go by the sort of ethos is expect the person in front of you to have zero racecraft, zero knowledge of where to check their mirrors, and I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm having to trust somebody not to ruin my race for me. So here we are at Lime Rock Park. Again, I've started from the back to see what's going on, and one thing that this season has taught me, starting from the back quite a lot, is that the quality of racing, even in the top split, is absolutely terrible. So always be wary. So as you can see here, I'm coming up on the yellow car. I'm on the outside. I've got the pace to overtake. He's blocking that off. So what I do is I actually come off the throttle, if you see it here. So I come off the throttle really early and really a lot lower than I normally would, because what I'm wanting to do is just see what transpires. In my head, I'm thinking, well, there's a good chance they're going to take each other out. So I hug it as close to the inside as possible. Now, the white car is running quite wide. So what that means is that the yellow cars also had to run wide. Now, normally, I would quite like to be where the yellow car is now, because I would get on the throttle nice and early and I'd have the inside of turn 3, as you could see from the start procedure. But I trust that he is going to go so wide, he's going to panic, and he's going to get on the throttle really, really late. So I just hold it as close to the inside as possible. And then I've made a nice, easy pass going into turn 3, simply from running the inside, so doing the opposite of what I was doing during the starts. So there was zero risk during any of that time of me actually sort of crashing out, and it enabled me to get a nice, easy place and get myself now looking at the white car and obviously wanting to move up to the leading pack. Very, very simple, very straightforward. Okay, so now we're at Laguna. We're going into turn 1. I think this is the first lap. Obviously, I feel like I've got the pace on those in front of me, and I'm wanting to have a look and see what happens. You can usually bet that when 3 people are this close in front of you, one of them's probably going to end up being run wide. If they do get run wide, then it gives you an opportunity to capitalize on that mistake. So as we look here, I'm sat and I'm waiting and I'm looking. Now, there's just been a tiny bit of contact in front of me between the 2 white cars there. So I know that people are going to be late getting on the throttle. So I go nice and tight, I get on it. Now, what I'm thinking, and I'm using the mirrors, is the person that's on the inside of me, are they going to try and go round the inside here at what is turn 3 on the right-hander coming up? I don't want to take the risk that as I'm going round, their left front clips my right rear, and that turns me around. So I get on the throttle a lot later. As you see, I'm completely off the throttle. I have been for quite a while, and I'm doing that so that I can give at least a car and a half, maybe 2 cars width to the inside. Normally, I would just be clipping the edge of that sausage curb, but what I do is I make sure that I give, you can almost fit 2 cars in there between myself and the apex is. I get back on the throttle. I know that if they're on the inside there, they will have also had to come off the throttle really early. They can't get back on the throttle till really late. So by giving the room, it allows us both to make the corner, and I make a relatively straightforward pass. I remain in the draft of the 2 guys ahead, and now I can start thinking about, okay, moving away from the guy behind and moving on up to overtake those people that are in front of me. Again, not doing anything that's particularly tricky. It's just making sure that you are giving room. You need to trust the people that are in front of you and that you are passing. You need to trust them as if they were a very, very untrustworthy person. Not saying anything about their racecraft, but usually if you are on the side of caution, it's going to sort of reward you going forward. And that's how we get our iRating to go up on a consistent basis rather than winning one and then falling back and finishing last and then winning one. And, you end up in that sort of stasis where you remain at 1,500 or 1,800 or 2,000 or wherever. Where I am at 5.2, if I have 1 loss, I lose about 120. If I get a win, I get about 40. So it would take me 3 or 4 races to get back to where I was if someone collects me and sends me off in the wrong direction. Okay, we'll continue with a few of these, and we'll see if we can find any that are slightly more interesting. Okay, so here I am at Summit Point. We'll use the cockpit on this, and then I'll show you it via Fartech Chase. So I'm trying to chase these 2 people. Ideally, I would quite like to go down the outside, but purple is blocking. I know I've got the pace advantage because I've got a double draft situation going on here, but seeing as there's no room on the outside, I try and take a look and see, well, is there any room down the inside? Now, there would be, but he just started, the black car in front of me starts moving towards the inside. I'm actually in VR when I'm racing, so I had a quick look to see where the purple was. I saw that he'd given me enough room, so I switched back, make sure that I can thread the needle between the 2 of them. Because I've kept my throttle in the whole way, I've got the double draft. I get the call from the engineer that I'm clear, which is why you see me make that move to the left. And then I just need to brake later than the car on the inside, make sure that I give plenty of room so that I'm not clipping the apex and not hitting him. And then there, managed to get 2 passes done around the outside. I'll now show you that in the chase view. Okay, so we're in the chase view now. So as I say, ideally I'd like to pass on the left on the purple car here, but there's no room. So I'll start making my way to the inside. Definitely got the pace differential with the draft. There's no room there. So I managed to thread the needle, get the call of all clear from the engineer. So move back over to the left, and then it's just braking later and taking a wider path so you're not going to hit the guy on your inside. So again, always making sure that you're giving room. It doesn't matter. I know the FIA say that if your front axle's ahead, etc., that you can close it off, but there's no point in us closing this off because we just end up losing iRating when we get hit. Okay, let's go for the next one. Okay, we're back at Summit here, and this is a double overtake that I'm going to show you here. And again, this is just all about road positioning and making the best of the situation around you. So, again, I feel like I've got the pace on these two. I would never normally make a pass right here before the final turn. However, the black car went early and got himself stuck behind the red car. Didn't make the pass. I had given room, but when I saw that he wasn't actually making it, then I used my pace advantage because I'm able to stay on the throttle, and now we've boxed him in. So there's nowhere for the black car to go right now to actually make the pass. So again, I'm fully prepared to get out of the throttle if black does stay in there on the inside, but I see that he feels better or makes a better choice, and he now wants to do a double draft. So he wants to do the same thing that I did in the previous clip. So red is now a sitting duck here. So I make my pass on him, but what I don't want to do is I don't want to go fully out on the left-hand side and leave that gaping hole down the middle that the two cars allowed me in the last one. So I make the pass, and then I just position my car in a way so that there's no gap between us. There is a gap on my outside if he wants to go down there. There's no gap between us. I know that I'm going to have the better braking point for turn one here. I can hold the black car off because now we're coming into the braking zone. It's just the one movement. I brake later than the red car. Again, I hold a nice outside path so that I'm not impinging on him. I'm not trying to get to the apex at all. And I can get on the throttle before him, and two passes made inside sort of 30 seconds, and again, without any risk to myself. And that's the important thing. It's not making the pass and thinking that you're Fernando Alonso. It's making the pass and knowing that you're actually going to continue the race and you're going to improve your points position. Cheers. Carry on. Okay, so here we are at Lime Rock for the Lime Rock chicane version. Now, the reason why I'm showing this one, it's not a particularly exciting clip or anything like that, but what you find is an awful lot of people, and you get this on Reddit as well, will applaud people for dive bombing in at the first apex coming here, although it's a false apex. You don't actually want to be going anywhere near it. So people, and I've seen it posted on Reddit, and everyone goes, oh, that's a great pass. It's not, it's a shit pass if you're passing into this first apex, because all you're going to do is surrender your exit for the second apex, which is the most important one. So what you're far better doing is following the car in front in, making sure that you go nice and wide, so that, as you can see, I'm fully on the throttle here before hitting the second apex. And then you can follow them, and if you time it nicely, you can just slowly catch your monkey, get right up onto their gearbox, make full use of the draft, move out the way, and then look, by the time you reach the line, you're going up and ahead. You've got the inside now for turn one. Keep it nice and tight. If you keep both wheels on this curving, it doesn't actually send you off. And I've got the pass made nice and easily. I can now focus on the guy in front, and I've not put my car or the other car at risk by dive bombing into T1. If you're one of the guys on Reddit that watches those things and says, yeah, that's a great pass, you're probably one of the guys that's sat in a lower split most of the time. So this is the way that you can make passes, increased iRating, and you're not having to put yourself at risk. Okay, now we have a slightly different one. This is from Sabuka. So these two guys in front of me were showing decent pace. They were having a nice little battle, and I wanted to obviously get past them. So we've just come around the final bend. There's not really anywhere for me to go. So what I'm going to try and do is force the red car into making a mistake that I can capitalize on so that I can pass him or her and then start getting after the black car. So as we've come around it, I try and feint that I'm going on the inside. So that causes the red car to take a defensive line. And then I try and get myself as close to the black car as possible. I give myself the widest entry. So obviously, if you're giving yourself a wider entry, it means you're going to be able to get back on the throttle sooner. Because the red car, as you can see here on the right of my screen, has taken a really shallow entry. It means he's going to have to brake harder, and he's not going to be able to get onto the throttle anywhere near as soon as I can. So I'm now fully on the throttle. He will still be just about coming off the brake. So he's taken the inside line round turn 1. Now he's probably thinking, oh yay, my relative tells me that I've just overtaken the car in front of me, and he's feeling pretty good about life right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to elongate the black car. So I'm going to elongate the black car by going over to the left-hand side as late as possible and making it so that we are just one car, as you can see here. So now the red is starting to think, this tight left-handed hairpin that we're coming up to, where's he going to go? So I always make sure that I'm giving plenty of room just in case the red car was going to do a big dive left. He didn't. So I get nice and close to the black car in front, follow him through. The red car's stranded out on the outside, and now I can forget about him and start chasing after the black car. So just to run through that at full speed. I feint to go down the inside, red car defends there. I then take a really wide entry into turn 1, get on the gas nice and early, try and get myself as close to the black car as possible to stop red moving back into that second position. Red is now stranded on the outside for the hairpin. There's nothing he can do really, he just has to sit and wait, and I'm now in his screen, then he can turn in. And it's a nice, simple pass. Again, I did not put myself or my car at risk during any part of that, even though it was a nice move on a car that was showing decent enough pace. Okay, we'll do one more of the overtakes, and then we'll move on to some defending, then avoiding hazards. Okay, so this is starting to move closer towards the avoiding hazards, but when you're in the cockpit, you should always be looking at what the car in front of you is doing and try and imagine to see what the car in front of you can also see. So a bit like, if you've been through your driving lessons and stuff like that, that's what my instructor all those years ago used to say. Try and picture what the guy in front of you is seeing and be ready for any hazards that come the way. So, as we can see, coming up to the all-important turn 5 here at Laguna, I think this is a first lap, which is why everyone's close together. I'm going to my normal place. I see that the car on the inside is starting is he going to make a move on the guy in front of him? But if you see there, he's just had a little lockup and his car's just wiggled. So I know his entry and therefore his exit are going to be suboptimal. So what I want to do is make sure that I'm getting on the gas nice and early, because if you're missing the throttle point here at turn 5, it's going to really penalize you going all the way up the hill. So I keep in the throttle. Now at this stage, I'm starting to run out of places to go. I'm fully on throttle. I don't want to sacrifice that in any way, shape or form. There's no room on the racetrack. So what I do is, as I get to this point here, I make a decision that, well, I'm already on the throttle. If I take a 1x, I'll take a 1x. But I'm not sacrificing, and I make a nice clean pass on the inside, and I'll show you that from the chase view. Okay, so we're in the chase view here. So I'll play it through at full speed, and if you watch the car in front of me, as he goes towards the apex, here's a little wobble, has a little moment. I think this is great, I can capitalize. The car on the outside, screwed from where that is. I can make a nice clean pass, again without threatening my own car, and I can start thinking about chasing down the leaders rather than having to worry about those two squabbling anymore. Right, they are some of the passes. Obviously, I did record more, but they're all exactly the same. I've just watched them through. It's just passing on the straights, giving plenty of room on the inside. If you are overtaking on the inside, making sure that you're not understeering back out into the racing line, because that's something people do. You don't need to be Ayrton Senna. You don't need to make passes. You don't need to be the last of the late breakers or anything like that to improve your standings in iRating. You just need to make good, clean passes and make sure that your car is still going round and facing the right direction when you cross the start-finish line for the following lap. Okay, very, very simple, very, very straightforward. When I first started, I thought, well, the guys that are winning, are they making passes left, right, and center? Are they making passes where I wouldn't even think to make passes? No, they're not. The reason why they've got the high iRating is because they're playing the percentage games. So it might appear boring, but it's a bit like, the best golfers aren't the ones that are shaping all the shots. They're the ones that are making the least mistake. And it's exactly the same in iRacing. Anyway, we shall now go on to doing a couple of defends, and then we'll look at avoiding hazards. Okay, so here we are at Lime Rock Park. I'm the lead car. iRacing Sporting Code states that you are not allowed, whilst you're allowed to make a defensive move, you're not allowed to run your race staring in the wing mirrors and making adjustments based on what the car behind is doing. So often you'll find that people will zig and zag and try and block you. That's completely protestable. As you can see on the screen right now, I've got up the exact wording. So just give that a read and know that, okay, you can defend, but you can't continuously adjust your line based on using your mirrors. So here, I'm on the outside. That's where I want to be. That's the faster line. I let the guy on the inside come past. He's now thinking, brilliant, I've got this guy at T1, and that's absolutely fine. He can beat me to the apex all he wants. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come off the... so if you see there, I just touch the brake to make sure that I'm going round, okay? I then hold it. I can just hold on the outside here all I like. I can get back on the throttle earlier, and as you see, it's a successful defense. The guy had the speed going into the apex, but I can sit there and defend the outside line all day long. Now, you do have to trust the guy on the inside to not oversteer too much, but as long as you give them plenty of room, as I did there, you should be absolutely fine. So that's the first sort of defense, is just taking your line, allowing them to sacrifice their entry, and just holding it around the outside, making sure you get on the throttle nice and early. Okay, this next recording is from, again, Lime Rock Park. This is actually one of the big championship races. So the two guys ahead of me are Matt Zerbe's on the right in the Martini car, and the guy on the left is our CJ Barry. Two good racers and well known to me. They're both very good, so I trust them an awful lot more. Now, what's happened here is CJ went round the outside of turn one. This is the final lap, and he therefore had the inside for turn three, and that has put Matt Zerbe's on the outside. So he has now got himself in a position where for turn four, he's going to have to take it incredibly shallow, and rather than taking it flat, he's going to have to come out the throttle slightly. So I start to sense blood here. So what I want to do, ideally, is get as close to CJ on the left as possible and force Matt to sort of sit in behind me. But the important thing here is we're talking about defending, and this is where we're going to see Matt Zerbe's defend incredibly well. But he's had to trust me. So I get myself just into second here. Now we've got the first chicane coming up. CJ is taking a nice defensive line, as you can see, so you can use that. So I am trying to get as close to CJ as possible without obviously punting him. So I get on the brakes slightly early, but I'm giving Matt Zerbe's plenty of room so that if he can drive it well enough, he can get around this chicane without any of us hitting each other. So to play that at full speed, I see Zerbe's is out of position. I think maybe I can capitalize on this and finish with a second place rather than a third place in this race. As I say, it's the last lap. I get myself in a nice, good position. I get as close to CJ as possible, but Matt manages to keep the defense. He holds the line and he gets through there. Now, unfortunately for him, I probably stopped him being able to attack Zerbe's going into the final corner, but the place was there and up for grabs. But the thing you must remember to do is, if the overtake isn't on, you just have to give room and accept it. And then all three of you can continue on your merry way, and you don't have any arguments. That's the thing you really need to be doing. And that was great defense from CJ and from Zerbe's, and sharing from myself to give room and to accept when it's not on. Okay, now we're going to go through some clips on how to avoid hazards. Now, sometimes, as in this first clip, the hazard will be your own driving. So again, I started from the back here, trying to get some content. And what happens is I miss my braking zone and I come into this first chicane and the first apex of it far too hot. So, oh my. So as I'm coming through, I'm too hot there. And around now, I realize that if I continue to steer right, I'm just going to turn the car around. So I come off the throttle and I decide, well, it's far better, discretion being the better part of valor. What I'm going to do is I don't want to go over this sausage curb because that will damage my car. So I will cut the corner. I will be very careful cutting the corner so I don't spin. I will accept the 1 second penalty, slow down penalty, and get right out of the way and let those cars behind me pass me. I'm now going to keep as far over to the left as possible. I actually go onto the microphone and shout, I've got to slow down so that people know why I'm slowing down. I get right out the racing line. I allow them to pass me, and I just accept that I made a mistake. And to continue the race, it was better to allow myself that 1 second penalty, lose a couple of places, and just accept that if I'm fast enough, I will catch them in the rest of the race and actually get on with it. Now, I'm going to show you this again from behind. Before, as I showed you, making a move in that second apex of the second chicane isn't worth it because you can always just draft someone and pass them. Now, a car did try and overtake me, and instead what he did was he suffered himself, and rather than being in a position to overtake me, he was very late on the throttle through that second chicane, and he didn't actually get to overtake me on the straight. So I'll now show you this from the far chase, and you can see what I did wrong and how I sort of remedied it and just took my medicine and let those two cars pass me. Okay, so this is from the chase cam. I've got the guy on the inside of me. I get too hot. I'm going to spin, so I decide to take my punishment, get right out the way. I do actually take some grass here because I'm wanting to make sure that no one hits me as they come past, because they're going a lot faster than me. Now, this white car would be far better, rather than trying to follow yellow and blue through, he would be far better tucking up behind me and then just passing me with the draft. But he tries to do the inside here. I am now still well ahead into the braking zone, so I'm going to take my line. He realizes that he's going to hit me. He has to hit the brake, and he suffers there, goes over the grass, probably gets his own slowdown. I just clip, and I can continue straight on down there and actually hold that place. If number 11 had just tucked up behind me, he'd have just passed me with ease on the straight. Okay, now let's avoid some hazards that aren't of my own doing. So here we are coming up to the second class turn at Laguna. Again, I'm running from the back, so I'm trying to chase down the leading pack. And what I'm doing as I'm coming through is I'm always, as well as trying to hit my own braking zone, I'm always trying to have a look at the apex and the cars going through it to see if there's going to be any potential danger, any hazards, any landmines that they're placing on the track. So I come off the throttle and then get back onto it as normal, but I notice that there is a car that is spinning. I don't know which way that car's going to go. I don't know whether he's just going to continue his spin and end up over on the right-hand side. So whilst I'm fully back on the throttle now, so that if he gets out of the way, I can sort of continue at pace, he isn't getting off exactly where I need to be. So where he is, I would hit him under normal circumstances. So I'm coming back off the throttle. I'm not touching the brake, but always be prepared to actually take the off track and take the 1X. It's far better than hitting a car, getting your own car damaged and taking a 4X as well. So I just decided to keep in the throttle as best as possible, go on the outside of the track, didn't lose much time at all, but it enabled me to avoid him as best as possible. So always be prepared to get off the track. Don't always think, well, I don't want to take the 1X. A 1X is always better than hitting the car that's right in your racing line. Okay, so we're back at Lime Rock Chicanes. Again, we're on a first lap. And we always expect, as we go through any of the chicanes here at Lime Rock, that people are going to spin, they're going to hit each other. So we always must be wary. So on this one, as we're going along, everyone appears to be going fine. There's obviously all the smoke as people drop down gears. So I'm taking everything as normal. I'm wanting to get back on the throttle as early as possible, clipping the grass on both of these. Now, at this point, I can see that cars are doing things that they probably shouldn't be doing. So I'm just having a good look. I see that the Pride car number 5 here has started to turn around. So at present, I'm still fully back on the throttle. As I process this information, as he starts fully turning around, I come off the throttle, a dab of brake, just to right myself. And then once I know that I'm going to be pointing in roughly the right direction, I'm back fully on the throttle. Now, I've got an awful lot of rotation on in the car, because if you look, I'm fully on the throttle. I'm doing 83 kilometers an hour. And if you look, my steering wheel's at sort of 45 degrees. But the thing to do is to then just keep it floored, just accept the slide and go through. Now, if I play that at full speed, coming up here, everything's normal, but always looking ahead. So I'm always looking off to the right here, trying to spot any danger, see danger coming up, and just trying to avoid it, continue my merry way, and just saying, okay, well, that's great. I've just made up 3 spaces. So often when I watch races back and see crashes in the midfield, people are hitting other people just because they're so focused on the braking zone and their own apex that they're not looking ahead to see what's going on in front of them. Again, if you can just keep your nose clean, a lot of the time in these races, even if you're starting in P10, P11, P12, you can usually end up in top 5 just by avoiding the people crashing in front of you. Okay, so we're once again back at Lime Rock, and quite a lot happens during this little sequence. So again, this is the first lap. We're coming up to the first chicane this time. And always be aware of everything in your surroundings ahead, and be prepared to bail out of anything. Take the grass, take the 1X, take the slowdown penalty if you have to, but keep all your 4 wheels attached. Keep people from hitting your gearbox, hitting you, making you have to pit or even slow down with the new damage model. So I'm going to play this one at full speed. So the car in front knocks out the purple car. It's a bit off-nerving. Then he starts to crash. So I decide it's better to just take the inside, take the slowdown, and avoid actually being collected by everyone else's crashes there. So I'll show that again. Slightly slower motion. So as I notice, in the braking zone, the idiot in front of me in the light blue and white car decides to try and make a late pass on the purple. But what he does is collects his gearbox and pushes him around. That's slightly unnerving for me in this position. So I hit the brakes and move onto the inside. I then move back out so that I can make the turn. Now, the blue car, having killed 1 person already, clips the sausage curb and gets collected by this purple car. Now there is nowhere for me to go to meet the second apex. So rather than get involved in that, I decide, right, far better get back on the brakes again, do my usual cross-country here over the grass, being very careful not to spin it, and accept the slowdown. But I've still made up 3 or 4 places, and everyone behind me has now crashed, and they're in, a big heap on the floor. So I'm not actually going to lose too much. So always be prepared for that eventuality, and to just get yourself off the track and avoid anything that's sort of taking place on your inside or your outside, but generally in front of you. Okay, we're at Okayama here, and again, I'm running from the back so that I can grab content for this video. So again, I'm looking at the apex and I'm trying to see what's going on. So as we're slowly coming into it, I'm on the brake. I'm looking for the apex, and I notice that there is smoke somewhere just past the apex on the road upwards. So always be prepared to not only slow down, but be prepared to stop if you so have to, because it's far better to do that than to plow into somebody. You can gain 5 or 10 seconds in a race on a pack of cars that are fighting in front of you. No problem at all. What you can't do is gain 50 seconds because you've had to drive around the track with only 3 wheels working, or you've had to take a tow and then stop in the pits. So I get on the brake a lot harder. Now, orange cars got involved, the martini cars got involved. So now at this stage, we've got 3 potential landmines on the track, plus I've got the black car in front of me where I don't know what's happening with him, and we've got this blue and yellow and black car that's sat on the side of the track, and I don't know if he's going to plow back onto it. So I actually slow right down. I try and move to the left to avoid the black car because I don't know what he's doing. This blue and white car now moves back into my way. So I think about going around the outside of him, but I notice the Martini car is still there. So I just decide it's better just to slowly pull away again. And if I play that through in full speed, so as I'm in the braking zone, I notice that everyone's hitting each other. I think about the outside, that's not going to happen. So again, I slow down almost to a stop and then just continue my way. Again, it's boring, it's not exciting. I'm not going through on 2 wheels and power sliding it around the corner. I'm just wanting to avoid all the idiots up ahead. So here we are at Sabuka, and sometimes, as well as wanting to avoid mistakes, sometimes we're actually wanting to create the mistakes in front of us. So on this, the red car had been weaving in and out and basically being a bit of a pain for a lap and a half. So what I want to do is I want to create a situation where the car in front is feeling pressured. So I put some pressure in and feint to pass around the inside here. So he starts thinking that, oh, maybe this guy is going to want to pass around the inside. So I get as close to him as possible. Get a decent enough exit. And what I want to do as well now is I want to feint that I'm going to go around the outside. In reality, I'm not going to go around the outside because it's very, very difficult to pass. But by feinting to show that I'm going around the outside, I'm wanting to try and push him to the inside as best as possible. So I take this nice outish line so he can see in his wing mirrors that I'm over on the right-hand side. That's going to push him to the inside. And what I really want them to do is I want them to touch their inner tires to this inner curbing here because it's very, very slippy. Now, I start moving back to what is the racing line, and I notice that he's got his wheels on there. So I'm getting prepared. If you see, I'm not actually on the throttle at all during that part. And just as I get back on the throttle, he starts to slide. But I'm waiting for that. The minute I've got full 90-degree lock on, and it's just a case of just avoiding it, a very brief lift, and I make it through. So to show that through at full, I'm wanting to show that I'm prepared to go on the inside, to go on the outside. I'm keeping him thinking as to what I'm going to be doing. I want to feint an outside line here. In reality, I'm going to return to the inside. He takes an inside line, gets slippy, spins the car, and I can just continue on with a big smile on my face, having done that pass. I've avoided the hazard. I've not done anything nefarious, but it's made it a lot easier for me than if I'm going to have to try and pass on what is a very tricky circuit to pass. There's really only T1 where you can do it safely. Okay, so this next one is to show that with the best will in the world, sometimes there are occasions where a car loses it in front of you and there's not a lot you can do because of where you are on the track. And that sometimes you just have to accept that to avoid the hazard, you're going to spin yourself, and what to do when that happens. So I know I used to get very flustered, and if I did a spin, I'd just try and right myself as quickly as possible and get straight back onto the racing line. I'm now in VR, so I can look left and right in a far more natural way of doing things, but we should always be using our mirrors or our left and right buttons so that we don't ruin someone else's race just because we've had the misfortune of a spin. So as you can see here, I feel like I've got the pace on this guy in front. I'm catching him up, but now he starts to spin. I'm at the slippiest point of the track at the apex. I'm coming back onto the throttle. I notice that he's gone. I start putting the brake on, but where I am, as soon as I put the brake on, I lose the back end. I try and correct it, but it's not enough. So my car is spun. There is another car coming behind me and a car that's just passed. And what you'll see is that I think about starting to go, and then I realize, because I'm having a look to my right, that there is another car there. So once he's passed, I then set off. I'm in first gear. I get a bit of wheel spin. I then see in my mirrors that 2 people are coming up on me on my right-hand side. So I keep well to the left so that I don't impinge on their racing line. And that's what everybody should be doing. If more people drove like that, a little bit more considerably, then it would be a lot better for everyone. And I'll show this from the far chase. So as you can see, I've actually just passed that blue car. I'm coming up on here. The car in front spins. By the time that I can react to it, I'm going to lose my back. There's nothing I can do about that. He gets away scot-free with it. I spin round. I start to set off. I notice that a car's coming, so you just sit and wait. I get out the way, try and get off the racing line so that green and orange can pass here, and then you just get on with your race. I've lost like 6 or 7 seconds there. But again, if you're fast enough, you'll catch them up. If they're making spins like that, they'll self-spin themselves anyway. So just try and be considerate and always check that the coast is clear before rejoining following a spin. So this is the section of the video that is entitled Sometimes You Die. So again, with the best will in the world, you can be as careful as you want. Unfortunately, there are other people on the road, and sometimes they will kill you. And the thing to do is just smile, sit back, and be glad that you're just on, a sim that costs you $10 a month or whatever it is, rather than thinking, well, that's just cost me $3,000 in repairs and my insurance is going to double for the next year. So I'm going to leave you with a compilation of people killing me. So on this one, I get a pass done nice and early. I hold it fair, give him plenty of room on the outside, manage to clip the apex, keep it on the track. He drafts me and then just pushes me, and I go, way, this is great. I'll keep the radio off because I was asking what the heck he was doing at the time. He did apologize, so I didn't bother protesting it. I don't think he meant to do it at all. Now let's go to the next one. Okay, so here we are back at the death trap that is Laguna. I've got 2 people fighting in front of me. I take turn 5, nice. So now I've got a good speed advantage on them of maybe about 5 kilometers an hour. I've also got a double draft going on. I see that they go too wide in turn 6, which is never a smart move or a smart play. Both of them don't manage to get through it particularly well. So it allows me to thread the needle and pass them both. Now, unfortunately for me, the person behind doesn't like the fact that I've just passed him. So whilst I go into the braking zone in the correct part, he decides that he probably has enough skill to pass me into the first part of the corkscrew. And as we'll see, he misses his braking zone and just smashes straight into the back of me, despite the fact that no part of him was level as we started turning towards the apex. So sometimes you do get sausages like that. Okay, so the key points to remember, running back through the list, is for your starts, check out my guide, but the easiest way to do it is 4,500 to 5,000 revs. When the lights go green, gradually build up the pressure on the throttle, and you'll make a couple of positions early on. Overtaking, always try and pass in a nice easy area on a straight or something like that, and give plenty of room. Expect the guy in front to try and fight back, but always give them plenty of room. When you're defending, again, it's better to go around the outside and get on the throttle earlier than try and fight somebody for an apex. That's not worth it. Also, don't make sudden late moves and change your line because that's not allowed. Avoiding hazards, you should be looking ahead and trying to view what the car in front of you is viewing, and always be prepared to stop or slow down. Every time I go into a turn when I'm following other people, I'm expecting for there to be an incident, and that way you can capitalize, keep your nose clean, and you'll make nice, easy passes. And always remember that even if you get everything right, sometimes you will be murdered. But that's absolutely fine because it happens to the best of us, and it doesn't cost us a great deal other than a little bit of iRating, which, even if you've got a really high iRating, will only cost you 3 or 4 races to get back to. So I hope you found this useful. I think if more people sort of took notice of the key points from this, I think everyone could quite easily get up to at least 3K in iRating. If you're doing your laps within a second of me and my track guides, you 100% would be able to get up there. So just enjoy your racing, try and keep it clean, and your iRating will increase rapidly. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you back for a normal track guide next week.